Welcome to Co-Pilot Podcasts. A crowd in Barcelona was booing so loudly during a promo that you literally could not hear the person speaking. And here's the twist. That was a success. That was the go-home Smackdown for Clash in Italy. And today we are breaking down every match, every segment, and every story beat from that May 29th show. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly what WWE built heading into the Turin Premium Live event, which storylines are firing on all cylinders, and which ones still have some explaining to do. My co-host has been all over this show since the results dropped, so let's get into it. Walk me through what kind of episode this actually was.
So right off the bat, this was not your standard Friday Night Smackdown. The WWE crew was already in Europe, so for American fans watching on USA Network, this was a pre-taped episode, which is rare. But internationally, it aired live on Netflix at 2 p.m. Eastern, which meant if you were a US fan who wanted to watch it live, you had to go to Netflix. 6 hours later, it hit USA Network on tape delay.
Wait, so American fans on cable were essentially watching a spoiler risk situation all afternoon?
Exactly. And the venue itself was the Olympic Arena in Badalona, Barcelona, Spain. According to the Dakia, this was WWE's first televised show in Barcelona since the European tour in 2024. It was also the first stop on a European summer tour that runs through Spain, Italy, France, Portugal, and the UK over the next 4 weeks.
That's a serious tour. So this wasn't just a one-off international show, it's the opening act of a whole European run.
Right, and that context matters for how you read the crowd reactions throughout the night. European crowds, especially at these special events, tend to be loud and opinionated in ways that can really amplify or expose a storyline.
Okay, so let's set the table. What was the full card on this show?
According to Forbes and the official WWE results page, here's what went down. Jade Cargill defeated Alexa Bliss. Axiom defeated The Miz. The MFTs, Tama Tonga and Tala Tonga, defeated Damian Priest and Royce Keys. Sami Zayn defeated Matt Cardona. Carmelo Hayes and Ricky Saints went to a double countout. And Chelsea Green defeated Nia Jax.
That's a full card. And the main event segment was Cody Rhodes and Gunther going face-to-face before their title match at Clash in Italy.
Yes, according to WrestleView, WWE also posted the full segment between Cody and Gunther separately, with Gunther vowing to put Cody Rhodes to sleep. That was the main event promo, not a match, which is pretty standard for a go-home show.
Alright, so let's dig into the biggest story of the night, the women's title picture. Because that opening segment with Jade Cargill is where the Barcelona crowd really made their presence felt.
So Cargill opened the show with Mission and Kayfabe, and according to Forbes, she was showered with boos immediately. She cut a promo vowing to beat Rhea Ripley at Clash in Italy, and Ripley interrupted to what Forbes described as possibly the biggest pop of the night. The crowd in Barcelona was firmly behind Ripley.
And Bleacher Report graded that opening segment a C+, right? Which feels a little harsh given the crowd reaction you're describing.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting tension. Bleacher Report's Chris Mueller noted it was a relatively simple segment that didn't do much to advance the storyline. But Forbes pointed out that the heat on Cargill was nuclear, fans were booing loudly enough that it was hard to hear her at times, and Cargill, to her credit, played through the crowd brilliantly.
So the question is, does a segment need to advance the plot to be effective, or is generating that kind of crowd reaction the whole point on a go-home show?
That's exactly the right question. And I think the Kayfabe theory framework is useful here. Their whole philosophy is that wrestling works when it has internal consistency, character truth, and narrative payoff. The character work on Cargill as a heel is landing. The crowd hates her. That's the job.
Right, heat is heat.
Exactly. And then Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss came out, which led to Nick Aldis booking Cargill versus Bliss as a match. Bleacher Report noted that Bliss was a highlight in the segment, fans were chanting for her, and she had a great line threatening Cargill, saying she'd gone back and forth with people way better than her and didn't want to embarrass her before her career got started.
That's a sharp line. Okay, so how did the actual Cargill-Bliss match go?
According to the official WWE results, Cargill dominated, but it was competitive. Bliss had the upper hand early thanks to her quickness, but Cargill used her power to shut that down. Mission and Kayfabe interfered, which led to a 4-woman brawl on the outside with Ripley and Flair. Bliss went for Twisted Bliss, Cargill got her knees up, hit a pump kick, and then Jaded for the pin.
And then after the match, Cargill hit Jaded on Bliss on top of a steel chair. That's a statement.
A very deliberate one. You're 2 days out from a title match, and you want the challenger looking dangerous. Bleacher Report noted that WWE could have booked Cargill to get an easy squash win, but instead they made it competitive, which actually made Alexa look good in defeat. That's smarter booking than it gets credit for.
Okay, let's talk about the match that Forbes specifically called excellent. Hayes versus Saints going to a double countout. Because that result is interesting.
Yeah, Forbes flagged this as one of the key points of the night. Carmelo Hayes and Ricky Saints battled to a double countout, which means neither guy got a clean win. And heading into Clash in Italy, that's actually a pretty smart call. You keep both guys looking strong without giving either a decisive edge.
It's the kind of result that gets criticized in the moment but makes sense when you zoom out.
Exactly, and that's the internal logic thing again. If the story these two are telling requires both of them to feel like credible threats, a double countout preserves that. The match quality was apparently there, Forbes called it excellent, so the crowd got something to enjoy even without a definitive finish.
Now let's get to the tag team situation, because the Priest and Royce Keys loss to the MFTs has some real story implications.
So according to the official WWE results, Damian Priest was teaming with Royce Keys because R-Truth was out. The two had trust issues going in, and despite actually forming a cohesive unit during the match, Solo Sikoa hit a cheap shot on Priest behind the referee's back. R-Truth showed up and attacked Sikoa. Keys went to ringside to help Truth, and that distraction allowed Tala Tonga to hit a chokeslam on Priest for the win.
So they lost because of outside interference and a distraction, not because of the miscommunication between Priest and Keys.
Right, and that's actually a nuanced booking choice. The story the WWE is telling is that Priest and Keys have trust issues, but the loss here wasn't caused by those trust issues, it was caused by the chaos around them, which keeps the internal tension alive without making either guy look incompetent.
That's the kind of thing that's easy to miss if you're just reading results without thinking about the narrative logic underneath.
Totally. And that's exactly what the Kayfabe theory talks about, analyzing booking through the lens of character psychology and internal logic. When a result makes sense within the world WWE has built, it lands. When it doesn't, fans disengage.
Okay, I have to ask about Axiom versus The Miz, because that match had a very specific energy given where it was happening.
So, Axiom is a Spanish luchador from Barcelona. He was wrestling in his home country, in front of his home crowd. According to the Dakia, this was the only officially confirmed match going into the show. It was set up on the May 22nd Smackdown when Fraxium interrupted The Miz and Kit Wilson backstage.
And the crowd was obviously going to be all the way behind him.
Completely. And the match had this wild element where the lights kept flickering throughout. The official WWE results page attributed it to Danhausen's mischievousness. Axiom used the flickering to hit a Spanish fly and then the golden ratio to get the home country win. The crowd got exactly what they wanted.
And speaking of Danhausen, he also sprayed The Miz with a fire extinguisher at some point during the show, which is just a sentence that exists.
It is a sentence that exists, yes. According to the official WWE highlights, Danhausen was doing experiments in his lab and then sprayed The Miz with a fire extinguisher. It's absurdist comedy in the middle of a go-home show, and somehow it fits the overall energy of the night.
There's something kind of genius about putting that kind of levity on a show that's otherwise building toward a serious title match.
It's tonal variety. Not every segment needs to carry the weight of a championship. And Danhausen flickering the lights to help Axiom win is a fun bit of connective tissue that makes the show feel like a living world rather than a series of disconnected matches.
Alright, let's get to the main event segment, Cody Rhodes and Gunther. Because Gunther vowing to put Cody to sleep is a strong closing image for a go-home show.
According to WrestleView, WWE posted the full Cody Gunther segment separately because of how significant it was. Gunther vowed to put Cody Rhodes to sleep heading into their undisputed WWE title match at Clash in Italy. And according to the official WWE results, Cody and Gunther exchanged shocking words before the title fight.
And the backstory here, Gunther became #1 contender on the May 15th Smackdown by defeating Royce Keys, and then Cody hit him with a crossroads right after. So there's already bad blood built in.
Right, and the May 22nd show added another layer. Sami Zayn confronted Cody backstage and demanded an apology for something that happened the week before. So Cody is heading into Clash in Italy with tension on multiple fronts. He's got Gunther in front of him and Sami Zayn behind him.
That's a lot of pressure on the champion. And Sami actually won his match on this show too. He beat Matt Cardona after that backstage confrontation with Cody.
Exactly. According to the official WWE results, Sami Zayn defeated Matt Cardona after demanding that apology from Cody backstage. So Sami is winning, he's got a grievance with the champion, and that's a thread that's clearly going to keep pulling.
Let's zoom out for a second on the numbers side of things. Forbes had some viewership data for recent SmackDown episodes. What does that context look like?
So according to Forbes, recent SmackDown viewership has been hovering in the 1.1 to 1.3 million range. May 22nd drew 1.258 million, May 15th drew 1.184 million, May 8th drew 1.279 million, May 1st drew 1.153 million, and April 24th drew 1.267 million. It's relatively consistent, not spiking dramatically, but not dropping either.
And the Barcelona show itself, Forbes reported ticket sales of 5,692 at the Olympic Arena, which has a capacity of around 12,500 according to the Dacia. So it wasn't a sellout.
Right, and that's worth noting. The crowd was loud and engaged, but the building wasn't full. Which actually makes the crowd reactions even more impressive in a way. A smaller, more passionate crowd can create a better atmosphere than a half-engaged sellout.
That's a fair point. Quality of crowd energy versus quantity of bodies in seats.
And European crowds specifically tend to bring that energy. TJR Wrestling's John Canton noted when reviewing the March 2025 SmackDown in Bologna, Italy, that the European crowds in Barcelona and Brussels for Raw were outstanding. There's a tradition of these international shows delivering on atmosphere.
So this Barcelona show was kind of continuing that tradition. Loud, opinionated crowd, big reactions for the faces, nuclear heat for the heels.
Exactly. And that's the ideal environment for a go-home show. You want the crowd to tell the story alongside the wrestlers. When Ripley walks out and gets a massive pop, and Cargill is getting booed so hard you can't hear her, that's the emotional stakes being set for Sunday's title match.
Let me push back on one thing, though. Bleacher Report's grade on the opening segment was a C+, and they specifically said it didn't do much to advance the storyline. Is there a version of this where the show was more hype than substance?
That's a legitimate critique. A go-home show has one job, make you want to watch the premium live event. And on that front, I think this show mostly delivered. But Bleacher Report's point about the Cargill segment not advancing the storyline is fair. It was essentially a recap of where things stand rather than a new development.
And Bleacher Report also flagged that it still makes no sense for Mission and BFAB to be doing Cargill's bidding. Which is a kayfabe logic question. Why are these women aligned with her?
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of internal consistency issue the kayfabe theory would flag. Their framework says wrestling fails when characters act without reason. If the audience can't understand why Mitchin and BFAB are in Cargill's corner, that's a crack in the logic that can undermine the whole storyline.
Cargill even addressed it in the promo, though. She said women work with her because they want a piece of power, which is at least an attempt at an explanation.
It is, and Forbes noted that line specifically. Whether it's convincing enough is a separate question, but at least the show acknowledged the question rather than ignoring it. That's a small but meaningful detail.
Okay, so stepping back from the individual segments, as a go-home show, did this SmackDown do its job?
I think it did the essential things. The two main title matches for Clash in Italy, Cody Rhodes defending the undisputed WWE title against Gunther, and Jade Cargill challenging Rhea Ripley for the women's title, both got meaningful screen time. The crowd was invested. The stakes felt real.
And the Sami Zayn thread adds an interesting wrinkle to the Cody story heading into Turin.
Right. Cody is walking into Clash in Italy with Gunther as the immediate threat and Sami Zayn as a simmering tension. That's good storytelling layering. The champion isn't just dealing with one problem, he's dealing with a complicated web of relationships.
And Gunther's vow to put Cody to sleep is a very specific, very physical threat. It's not just trash talk, it's a promise about what he's going to do in the ring.
Gunther is one of the best in the world at making his character feel like a genuine physical danger. When he says he's going to put someone to sleep, you believe it.
Here's something that almost never happens in pro wrestling. A premium live event where not a single match feels like a sure thing. Not one. 5 matches, 4 title bouts, and according to Cinema Blend's Mac Rawdon, 4 of those 5 could legitimately go either way. That's the card WWE is bringing to Turin, Italy this Sunday, the first ever WWE premium live event on Italian soil. Today, we're breaking down every match at WWE Clash in Italy 2026, what the storylines actually mean, and where things could go after the dust settles in Turin. You'll walk away knowing exactly what's at stake in each match and why this card is being called one of the most unpredictable non-WrestleMania shows in recent memory. My co-host has been deep in the weeds on this one all week. Let's get into it.
So let's just set the scene first. WWE Clash in Italy 2026 goes down this Sunday, May 31, at the Inalpi Arena in Turin. And this is genuinely historic. It's the first time WWE has ever held a major premium live event in Italy. The Clash event has become this annual European tradition: Glasgow in 2024, Paris in 2025, and now Turin.
Right, and it's not a small show either. 4 title matches on one card is a lot.
It's a lot. According to Forbes, this is actually the third major WWE event in May alone, after Backlash and Saturday night's main event. So WWE has been running hot all month, and Italy is the exclamation point.
Walk me through the full card for people who haven't been following along.
So you've got 5 matches confirmed. Cody Rhodes defending the undisputed WWE Championship against Gunther. Roman Reigns defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Jacob Fatu in what's being called Tribal Combat. Rhea Ripley defending the WWE Women's Championship against Jade Cargill. Becky Lynch defending the Women's Intercontinental Championship against Sol Ruca. And then Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar in a non-title singles match.
That is a stacked card. And what's wild is that almost every single one of those is a rematch.
That's exactly the theme USA Today's Jordan Mendoza flagged. This is a night full of rematches, and the question is whether the result stays the same or someone gets their revenge. Ripley versus Cargill is a WrestleMania 42 rematch. Femi versus Lesnar is a WrestleMania 42 rematch. Roman and Fatu just fought at Backlash. And Rhodes and Gunther have history going back to Crown Jewel 2024.
So let's start with the women's title match because that build has been really interesting. What's the story with Ripley and Cargill?
So Rhea Ripley won the women's championship from Jade Cargill at WrestleMania 42. Cargill then challenged her to a rematch, and on the May 22 Smackdown, Ripley accepted. But then at Saturday night's main event on May 23rd, in a 6-woman tag match, Cargill, Mission, and B-Fab against Ripley, Charlotte Flair, and Alexa Bliss, Cargill hit Ripley with the jaded finisher and pinned the champion.
So Cargill goes into the title match with a pin over the champion. That's significant momentum.
It is, and according to Fightful, the finish came when Cargill kicked Ripley in the face while Ripley's attention was elsewhere, then hit the jaded. So it wasn't a clean, dominant win, but a pin is a pin. Cargill heads into Turin with something to point to.
And what are the predictions looking like for that match?
Most analysts are landing on Ripley retaining. Fox News, USA Today, Cinema Blend, they're all picking Ripley. Cinema Blend's Rodden actually called it the match he's most confident about on the whole card. But the minority view, like the one at Last Word on Pro Wrestling, is that Fatu should win the world title and Cargill should win the women's title, basically arguing WWE needs to strike while the iron is hot on both challengers.
Interesting. What about Becky Lynch and Sol Ruca? That one has a weird origin story.
Yeah, so this match exists because Becky Lynch got herself disqualified in a non-title match against Ruca at Saturday night's main event. SmackDown general manager Nick Aldis then forced a title match at Clash in Italy as a consequence. So Lynch basically created her own problem.
That's a very Becky Lynch thing to do, honestly.
It really is. And Sol Ruca is a fascinating case here. According to Forbes' Blake Ostreicher, her start on the main roster hasn't gone as smoothly as planned. She's taken losses to names like Io Sky and Liv Morgan. But Ostreicher argues this is exactly the moment to put the title on her. He says a Lynch loss would accomplish 2 things: getting Lynch back into the women's world title picture where she belongs, and catapulting Ruca up the card less than 2 months into her main roster run.
So there's a real case for an upset here.
A strong one. Bleacher Report's Chris Mueller also picked Ruca to win the IC title, calling it a slam dunk decision. The Sportster said Ruca is in dire need of real momentum. But Fox News and USA Today are both picking Lynch to retain, with USA Today noting it feels too early to put the title on Ruca right now.
So the analysts are genuinely split on that one. Now let's talk about the match everyone's been buzzing about: Obafemi and Brock Lesnar.
This one has a wild backstory. At WrestleMania 42, Obafemi defeated Brock Lesnar in under 5 minutes. According to Sportskeeda, Femi's stock has skyrocketed since that win. He's being booked as one of the most dominant superstars on the roster. Then, Lesnar appeared to retire. And then he unretired.
Wait, he faked his retirement?
That's how Bleacher Report and WrestleVoice framed it. Lesnar faked retirement, then returned on the May 18 Raw and hit Femi with 4 F5s. WrestleVoice's Jason compared it to a Hollywood sequel. Rocky 2 meets Terminator 2. The aging legend got embarrassed, hung up the boots, then dramatically came back because the new unstoppable machine won't stop coming.
That's actually a great way to frame it. So who wins in Turin?
This is where it gets interesting. Bleacher Report's Chris Mueller picked Lesnar to win, arguing WWE won't have the Beast lose 2 matches in a row, it evens the score at 1-1, and sets up a rubber match, possibly at SummerSlam in Minneapolis, which is Lesnar's home state. But USA Today's Jordan Mendoza picked Femi to win again, saying Lesnar's return basically writes that his retirement match happens at SummerSlam with Femi as the opponent.
So both paths lead to SummerSlam, just with different outcomes in Italy.
Exactly. And Sportskeeda even floated a scenario where Gunther interferes and costs Lesnar the match, since Gunther's whole character is about ending careers, and he's already retired Goldberg, John Cena, and AJ Styles over the past year. If Gunther loses to Rhodes earlier in the night, he could come out and insert himself into the Lesnar-Femi story.
Oh, that's a wild wrinkle. Speaking of Gunther, let's get into the WWE Championship match, because that one feels like the most loaded match on the card.
It really is. And the build has been genuinely compelling. On the May 1 SmackDown, Gunther blindsided Rhodes after a match and locked him in a sleeper hold until he passed out. Then Paul Heyman revealed he owed Gunther a favor. In storyline, Gunther had previously protected Heyman from an attack by Seth Rollins, and that favor was a title shot at Clash in Italy.
Paul Heyman cashing in a favor is such a great storytelling device.
It's classic Heyman. And then there's the Sami Zayn subplot, which is quietly one of the most interesting threads heading into this show. On SmackDown, Zayn faced Rhodes in singles competition and lost. After the match, Gunther attacked Rhodes with a sleeper hold, and Zayn just stood there and watched. He didn't help.
Wait, Zayn just let it happen?
He did. And then on the following SmackDown, Zayn explained himself. According to E-Wrestling News, Zayn said, and this is a direct quote, "I wanted to help Cody. Every instinct in me was saying, help him, help him. It took everything in me not to help you right here. Because as I watched the life fade from your eyes, I realized the right thing to do in that moment was to leave you there so that you could learn a lesson."
That is such a Sami Zayn thing to say. He's convinced himself he's the good guy in this.
And Rhodes fired back that once he's done with Gunther, he hopes to teach Zayn a lesson. So there's a whole secondary story brewing there. Zayn is a wild card for what happens in Turin.
And Rhodes actually beat Gunther at a live event in Liverpool just days before Italy, right?
He did. According to Yahoo Sports, at the M&S Bank Arena in Liverpool, the first stop of WWE's European tour, Rhodes defeated Gunther in a tables match. He escaped a powerbomb, hit across Rhodes, and sent Gunther through a table. Yahoo Sports noted that before this, Gunther's last singles loss had come against CM Punk at SummerSlam 2025. So Rhodes joins a very short list of people who've beaten Gunther one-on-one recently.
So Rhodes heads into Turin with momentum, but the title match is under regular rules, not a tables match.
Right, and that changes things. Bleacher Report's Chris Rowling actually made a compelling case for Gunther winning the title in Italy. His argument is that both Rhodes and Gunther are in a kind of creative purgatory right now. Rhodes has been champion since March 6, but his reign has felt rudderless, and Gunther hasn't had clear direction since retiring John Cena. A title change could reset both of them.
That's a counterintuitive take. Most people would assume the champion retains at a mid-year PLE.
And that's exactly why Bleacher Report's Mueller went the other way. He noted that Rhodes has only held the belt since March 6, and WWE prefers longer world title reigns these days. So he gave Rhodes the slight edge. But he also said, this is the hardest match on the card to predict because both outcomes make sense. That's rare.
And then there's the main event, Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu in tribal combat. This is the one with the most emotional weight, I think.
It really is. Roman Reigns won the World Heavyweight Championship from CM Punk at WrestleMania 42, and after that he reunited with the Usos and reformed the OG bloodline. Then Jacob Fatu, his cousin, stepped up and challenged him. They fought at Backlash in Tampa, where Roman retained, but Fatu attacked officials after the match and laid out the Usos and Reigns on the May 11 Raw. So the feud has escalated.
And now it's tribal combat in Italy. What does that stipulation actually mean for the match?
It's a high-stakes, anything-goes stipulation tied to the bloodline mythology, the idea being that the tribal hierarchy itself is on the line. Bleacher Report's Graham Matthews called the Roman Fatu feud the best thing going on Monday nights for the past month, and said they stole the show at Backlash. So the in-ring quality is there.
But there are some critics of the bloodline story at this point, right?
Yeah, and that's a fair point. Last word on pro wrestling's Mark Justice was pretty blunt about it. He compared the current Bloodline story to Teen Titans Go, saying it relies too heavily on past nostalgic glory and has become overexposed. His argument is that Fatu shouldn't be treated like the Usos and fall in line. He's proven himself as a main event level talent, and WWE needs to strike while the iron is hot.
So his pick is Fatu wins the title.
Fatu wins, but most analysts are going the other way. IWNerd.com picked Roman to retain, but get attacked after the match to write him off TV for a short period. The theory being that Roman's next major appearance would be at SummerSlam, potentially against Obafemi.
So there's this whole domino effect being theorized. Roman retains, gets written off, Femi beats Lesnar or vice versa, and everything converges at SummerSlam.
That's the shape of it. And Bleacher Report's Matthews noted that from the moment Roman won the World Heavyweight Championship, it felt like he'd be holding it until SummerSlam, where Obafemi could dethrone him. But Fatu has proved himself so well that WWE might pivot. There's genuine uncertainty about the endgame.
Let's zoom out for a second, because Forbes mentioned that the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments are kicking off the night after Clash in Italy on Raw. That's a big deal for the future of the roster.
Huge deal. Forbes Oystreaker specifically flagged this. In just 4 weeks after Italy, WWE heads back to Saudi Arabia for Night of Champions, and the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments start the very next night on Raw. So whatever happens in Turin sets the table for who enters those tournaments with momentum.
And the topic we're covering today specifically mentions Obafemi as a projected King of the Ring winner. Does that track with what the search results are saying?
It tracks with the trajectory. Sportskeeda noted that since defeating Lesnar at WrestleMania, Femi's stock has skyrocketed and he's being booked as one of the most dominant superstars on the roster. A King of the Ring win would be the next logical step in cementing that dominance. It's the kind of tournament that historically elevates someone from rising star to undeniable main event fixture.
And Sami Zayn as a potential Money in the Bank winner, that's an interesting projection given where his character is right now.
It's fascinating because Zayn is in this weird in-between space. He lost the US title match against Trick Williams at Backlash, according to Forbes. And now he's got this simmering tension with Cody Rhodes. A Money in the Bank briefcase would give him the ultimate wild card, the ability to cash in at any moment. And given that Zayn is positioning himself as the last real good guy while doing increasingly questionable things, a briefcase would be perfect storytelling fuel.
It's that classic Zayn thing where he's convinced he's the hero of his own story even when the audience can see he's drifting.
Exactly. And the Rhodes-Zayn tension that's building right now, Rhodes saying he'll teach Zayn a lesson after dealing with Gunther, that could be the thread that pulls Zayn toward a full heel turn and a Money in the Bank cash-in scenario down the road.
Now, one thing I want to push back on a little, this card is being called unpredictable, but isn't that partly because WWE has been booking things in a way that's felt a bit scattered? Bleacher Report's Rolling was pretty critical of the creative direction for both Rhodes and Gunther.
That's a fair challenge. Rolling's piece was pointed. He said Rhodes' reign has felt like typical weekly show champion stuff, and that Gunther's booking after retiring John Cena has been rudderless. He noted Gunther didn't even have a clear WrestleMania spot until the last second when Seth Rollins got injured. So the unpredictability isn't entirely by design. Some of it is a symptom of creative uncertainty.
Right. There's a difference between genuine intrigue and just not knowing what WWE is going to do because the booking has been inconsistent.
Totally. But I think Cinema Blend's Rawdon captured something real when he said, this card has more legitimate uncertainty than almost any non-WrestleMania PLE he can remember. He's been doing predictions since WrestleMania 38 and has a 2-27-86 overall record, and he said he's never been this unsure going in. That's not nothing.
227 wins in predictions. That's a guy who knows the patterns, and even he's stumped.
He went 5 for 5 at Backlash, which he admitted wasn't hard because the outcomes were obvious. Italy is a completely different animal. He's predicting at least one world title change, and he thinks there's going to be a big return. Randy Orton has been absent since WrestleMania 42, when he attacked Rhodes after his main event loss. The Sportster flagged that Orton standing over a bloodied Rhodes was the closing image of WrestleMania Saturday, and he hasn't been seen since.
Oh, that's right. Orton turned heel and then just disappeared. That's a loose thread that needs to get picked up.
The Sportster made the case that Orton returning at Clash in Italy would be the perfect moment. He's seeking revenge on Rhodes for his WrestleMania loss, and his descent into darkness after the heel turn needs to continue. If Gunther wins the title, Orton showing up to further complicate Rhodes' life makes a lot of sense narratively.
So, there are multiple layers of potential chaos on this show. Let me ask you this. If you had to pick one match where the result genuinely surprises people, which one is it?
I think the Sol Ruca and Becky Lynch match is the one most likely to produce a genuine surprise. The consensus is split, the story logic supports a title change, and WWE has a history of doing unexpected things at international events. USA Today even noted it has the feeling of those international upsets we've seen whenever WWE goes abroad. If one match delivers a shock result, that's the one.
And from a pure storytelling standpoint, what does Sol Ruca winning actually do for the product?
It does two things simultaneously, as Forbes laid out. It gets Becky Lynch out of the mid-card title scene and back toward the women's world title picture where she's been badly needed. And it gives Ruca a launching pad. She's been on the main roster less than 2 months and has taken losses to Io Sky and Liv Morgan. A title win in Italy in front of a European crowd could be the reset her push needs.
It's the kind of moment that can define a career if it's done right.
And Lynch has a long track record of elevating new talent. Forbes specifically pointed to that. Lynch working with a rising star and then putting them over is something she's done before. The question is whether WWE pulls the trigger this early in Ruca's run.
Let's talk about the broadcast setup for a second, because it's actually kind of interesting. The show airs on ESPN in the US and Netflix internationally.
Right, and WWE made a specific announcement about the opening matches. According to Wrestling Inc., the Cody Rhodes vs. Gunther title match and the Rhea Ripley vs. Jade Cargill match will both air during the first free hour on ESPN. After that, it moves exclusively to the ESPN app in the US. So WWE is putting its 2 biggest women's and men's title matches in the free window. That's a statement about what they think will draw casual viewers.
That's smart. Lead with your most recognizable names for the free audience.
And it means Rhodes vs. Gunther opens the show, which, as Bleacher Report's Rolling noted, is a bit of an indictment. A match that could have been a main event is opening the card. But it also means the first thing American fans see on free TV is the WWE Championship on the line. There's a logic to it.
All right, so when you step back from all of this, 5 matches, 4 title bouts, a card full of rematches that somehow feels genuinely unpredictable, what does this show actually mean for WWE right now?
I think it's a crossroads event. WWE is in this post-WrestleMania stretch where the big stories from April need to either pay off or pivot. The Bloodline saga with Roman and Fatu needs a resolution. Obafemi needs to be established as the next dominant force. Gunther needs a clear direction. And the women's division needs new champions or new challengers. Italy is where all of those threads either get pulled tight or start to unravel.
And the fact that it's happening in Italy for the first time ever adds a layer of significance. WWE doesn't go to new countries for PLEs without wanting to make a statement.
Exactly. And Forbes flagged that in 4 weeks, WWE heads back to Saudi Arabia for Night of Champions, with the King and Queen of the Ring tournament starting the very next night after Italy. So whoever walks out of Turin with momentum, or with a title, is immediately entering a new phase of the calendar. The stakes are real.
Here's what this really comes down to. WWE is asking a lot of its audience this Sunday. They're being asked to invest in rematches, matches they've already seen, and believe that the outcomes will be different enough to matter. And